Alright, in this video I'm going to show you how to create this DNA double helix animation using the Yanobox Nodes 3 plugin in Apple Motion. Now if you have purchased Nodes 3, you will notice that this is one of the included presets. However, I'm going to show you how to make this from scratch, and oftentimes with plugins like this, the best way to learn it, especially if presets are included, is to take those presets and dissect them, take them apart, and then ultimately you will become more comfortable with the plugin. So I have a blank 1080 project loaded up in Apple Motion, and let's go ahead and add that Nodes 3 generator. Go into Object, Generators, Yanobox, and Nodes 3. And by default, you're presented with a circle form showing just the nodes right now, and we actually don't want to use this circle form. Let's go ahead and go to the form, and let's set this to grid. We now have a 10 by 10 grid, and we can see that in the nodes count X and Y. Let's set the X count down to 2, and let's set the Y count down to 1. So we have 2 nodes here, and we want to space those out more. So let's go to size X and let's bump it up to 400. Now we can see the 2 nodes are separated more. Let's go to the node size and let's crank the size up to say 40. Now we can see these 2 nodes just fine. If we enable the lines, we can actually go ahead and connect these 2 nodes. And now what we want to do is we want to replicate this. And to do that, I'm going to close down the form menu, the nodes, and let's go to the effects. For the effect, let's select replicate. Now right now it's replicating it along the X, and we can see the rep count X is set to 2. Let's set that to 1, and let's bump up the rep count Y. Now I'm going to bump this up to 10, and you're not going to see 10 of them right now, but if we take our rep height and we decrease this, we're going to bring these replications closer together, and I'm just going to bring this on down so that we can see all 10 of them. So now that we've bumped that rep height down, we can see all 10 of these replications. Now we're going to bump this count up way high right here in a moment, but let's go ahead and work on the rotation. And if I come to rep Y rotation and I start cranking this up, you're going to see that these things are rotating, but we don't want them all to rotate the same. We want to do it on a per step basis. And a way to fix that is go to rep rotation and let's select per step. And when we select per step, we can now see this curvature happening. It's starting at 0 degrees and it's rotating on a per step basis up to this final replicated piece here for a total of 72 degrees. Now let's go ahead and bump this up to say 720. So we're going to see 2 full twists, and you may say, this does not look right. Well, now we want to take our rep count Y and let's create more replications of this. So instead of 10, let's do 100. Now we can see a smooth transition. Now we do not see all 100 of these because our rep height, if we bump this down some, let's bump it down to say 10. Now we can see the double helix. But I actually want a little bit more of a gap in between there, so I'm going to bump it up to say 30. That looks pretty good. Now some of these are off the screen, but you'll see why I have some of these off the screen right here in a moment. Let's close down the effects and let's look at the nodes color. Now you have many options here. For right now, I'm just going to go to a random hue, and I'm going to change my color. I'm going to go with the cyan. So this gives you various colors here, and we can easily come in here and change this to say shade, so we get shades of that cyan. And if we come back up to the nodes themselves, instead of solid shape, let's do a soft shape. That totally changes the effect as well, and there's tons of settings we can adjust in here to get our own custom look for this double helix. As a matter of fact, let's come on down to our lines, and let's change that color as well. This red doesn't look too bad. As a matter of fact, we could do a curved tube to give it an actual 3-dimensional effect, these little steps in our DNA double helix. I'm just going to bump my start and end thickness up a bit, maybe to 4. And now I'm going to come back to effects, and for that rep height, I'm going to bump that up a little bit more to put a bigger gap in between each one of these pieces. Let's try 50. 50 looks good, and you may say, okay, we don't have that same wrapping effect. Well, remember, it's on a per step basis. So let's come down here and bump this up to maybe 900. Just a few more revolutions there on our double helix. Now let's animate this thing. So a couple of things we can do here, just closing down some of these menus. We can go to animation. And for one of our destinations, what we want to do is we actually want to rotate this entire form, along with the replications. And for this first destination here, let's go to transform rotation Y. This is going to rotate it around the Y axis. And since we haven't done any other transformations, the Y-axis is up and down here. We haven't moved our camera or anything. Let's go ahead and bump the speed up to say 10, see what that looks like. Let's give it a play. And now we have our rotation. Now what we also want to do is actually move this thing up to give it even more of an animated effect. So for destination 2, let's transform position Y. And here's where you can play around with both of these speeds. I'm going to bump this up some. And now if we play this back, we should have an upward movement as well as a rotation. Now I think the upward movement or either the rotation, one of these can be faster or slower. I'm going to take the speed of the position Y. I'm going to bump that down to 1. And let's see what this looks like. So now we have an upward movement and a rotation. Now we can come in here and adjust our camera. And inside of the camera, and if we adjust the camera rotation X, this is going to make the camera look upward, so to speak. So we're going to be looking upward towards the top of that double helix. And we can see that it ends up there. All 100 of these replications. And now I'm looking down. So maybe somewhere right around here, as long as we're not seeing the end of it. Let's give that a play. And now I'm going to come back and play with some of these other settings. Underneath nodes, I'm going to go to glowing shape. That looks pretty good. And maybe for nodes color, let's change the blending. Let's do add. And there you have it, a quick way to build a double helix inside of the nodes plugin using Apple Motion. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. And that's it for this video. I hope it helped.